We take it for granted, but basically our entire digital world, it's all built on a really weird foundation. Pure, unadulterated randomness. And today, we're going to dive into what that actually means. So let me ask you a question, and I know it sounds like a setup to a joke, but what on earth do 100 lava lamps have to do with protecting your private data? And the answer, believe it or not, is pretty much everything.
Yeah, I'm not kidding. This isn't some weird thought experiment. At Cloudflare, one of the biggest internet security companies out there, they have an actual wall of lava lamps. A camera just sits there, watching them all day, and the pictures it takes, they're a super critical part of how they encrypt a huge chunk of the internet.
Okay, so to figure out why this high-tech company is using, groovy 60s decor for its security, we've got to back up a bit. We need to talk about why security, at its very core, needs chaos. All right, think about it like you're in a high-stakes poker game. If you're a predictable player, if you have a tell, everyone at the table is going to know your hand before you do. You're going to lose, big time. Well, encryption is exactly the same. If a hacker can predict the digital key you're using to lock up your data, game over. So being unpredictable isn't just important, it's everything. But here's where we hit a snag. This need for unpredictability runs smack into a huge problem with computers themselves. I like to call it the predictable machines dilemma. So here's the fundamental conflict, right? Computers are built to be predictable. That's their whole job. They follow rules, you give them an input, they run it through an algorithm, and they give you the same output every single time. And that's great, it's why they work. But for security, that predictability is poison. Security needs the exact opposite: pure, chaotic, pattern-free randomness. As Professor Steve Ward from MIT said, computers are basically designed to get rid of randomness, so asking a computer to be truly random, it's like asking your calculator to give you a different answer for 2 plus 2 every time you type it in. It goes against everything it is. So, if computers are so bad at being truly random, what do? Well, they cheat. Or more accurately, they fake it. And this leads us to the world of pseudo-randomness. Okay, so what they use is a little thing called a pseudo-random number generator, or PRNG for short. Now, this is a really clever bit of code. It spits out a long list of numbers that, to you and me, looks totally random. But here's the catch, and it's a big one. The entire sequence is completely determined by one starting number. And that starting number? That's called the seed. And the whole process is surprisingly simple. You take that seed number, you feed it into a totally predictable math formula, and boom, out comes this long string of numbers. It might look random, but if you know that starting seed and you know the formula, you can predict every single number in the sequence. Every single one. And hey, this isn't some new problem we just discovered. One of the earliest attempts at this was from the brilliant John von Neumann. His middle square method was simple. Take a number, square it, grab the digits from the middle, and that's your next random number. The only problem? It was terrible. The sequences would often get stuck in these short, repeating loops really, really fast. Not so random after all. And this is where the massive security hole opens up. Let's go back to that poker game. If a hacker figures out the algorithm your computer is using, and they can guess that starting seed, they can predict the entire random shuffle. It's like they're looking at your cards before they're even dealt. So what's the solution? If that initial seed is the weak link in the chain, how do you make a seed that's impossible to guess? Well, you stop trying to make the computer invent it. Instead, you go out and find some real-world chaos to use. In the world of cryptography, there's a name for this real-world chaos. It's called entropy. You can just think of it as a measurement of unpredictability. And it's this entropy that we use to create a truly random, super strong cryptographic seed to kick off the whole process securely. Okay, so where does this entropy come from? You might be surprised to learn your own computer is collecting it right now. We're talking about things like the super precise timing between your keystrokes, the exact way you move your mouse, tiny little changes in the processor's temperature. All of these little unpredictable things get collected by your operating system into something called an entropy pool. And this brings us right back to those lava lamps. Cloudflare's wall of entropy is basically a giant, beautiful, real-world entropy collector. The camera takes a snapshot of that chaotic, goopy, unpredictable wax. That picture is turned into a long string of digital data, and that data is a perfect source of pure randomness for their cryptographic seeds. Pretty cool, right? And it's not just lava lamps, which is awesome. Their London office has this double pendulum system. Its movement is literally mathematically chaotic. And in Singapore, they measure the completely random radioactive decay from a tiny, totally safe pellet of uranium. Different methods, but they're all doing the exact same thing, bottling up a little bit of real-world chaos.
Okay, so we've seen the problem and some really creative solutions. But let's talk about what happens when this goes wrong. What are the stakes when the thing you think is random isn't random at all? Well, the history of cybersecurity is basically a graveyard of these failures. Way back in '95, the very first version of Netscape's encryption got cracked because its random seeds were just based on the time of day. Super predictable. Then in 2008, a huge bug in a version of Linux meant that tons of security keys being generated were all from this tiny, predictable pool. It was a disaster. And in 2010, hackers broke the PlayStation 3 because it got lazy and kept using the same random number over and over again for its security. There's this quote from a statistics encyclopedia that just lays it all out there. It basically says, look, the list of bad random number generators is long, and for over 40 years, experts have been screaming, do not blindly trust your software. And you know what? That warning is just as important today as it was 4 decades ago. So, you see, randomness isn't just a piece of the security puzzle. It's the foundation that whole thing is built on. If a hacker can predict your random numbers, it's like they found a loose thread, and they can pull on it until your entire security unravels. And all of this really leaves us with one big, kind of unsettling question, doesn't it? We live in a world that is built on digital trust. We trust it with our money, our secrets, our entire lives. And so much of that trust boils down to our ability to find true, unpredictable chaos, like the kind you'd find in a wall of lava lamps. So it really makes you think, how can we ever really be sure that our random is random enough?